Hey, it's Mover Scott from the Imagination Movers, and you're watching a podcast where nostalgia comes alive. It's Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. Roll it!
Welcome to Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, the podcast where nostalgia comes alive. Since July of 2021, Jake and his friends have interviewed professionals in the worlds of acting, directing, writing, puppeteering, and many more. Who will they be chatting with in this week's interview? Find out in this Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show episode.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, where nostalgia comes alive. Glad you're here with us today. I'm your host, Jake Deffinbaugh, MTSRs, our crews, Chris Bixby, and Matt Bingel. How you guys doing?
Good, Jake.
Good, Jakey. How you doing?
That's great to hear. I'm doing great. As always, thank you for asking. Chris, what do we have for today?
Our guest for today, he is a singer who a lot of you may know as one of the members of the boy band Dream Street. Since Dream Street, he's also made a solo career and a whole bunch of other things, which we'll get into. And here he is, Greg Raposo. Greg, happy to have you here.
Thanks so much, guys. How's everyone doing?
Doing good.
Good.
Of course,
Good. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you. How about you?
All right. Happy to be here, guys. Thank you so much for asking me to come on.
Yes.
Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course.
A pleasure.
Absolutely. So to start this off, could you tell our audience a bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you at least a part of what I do because I do a lot of different things. But
so I got started in the music industry at a very young age, around 9 years old. They called me the Elvis Kid. Priscilla Presley actually invited me out to Graceland to perform at Elvis's house.
Oh, wow.
The first live band that ever backed me up at 9 years old was actually Elvis's actual original band. It was his drummer and his background singers. So that was like my introduction into the professional world of entertainment. It kind of snowballed from there, and I started doing some off-Broadway and Broadway stuff. And then that led me into becoming a member of the group Dream Street, which originally was actually supposed to be a Broadway show, which most people don't know. So all 5 members of the group, we were sent that, to that audition through our agents as we would any other Broadway show. And the whole concept behind that show was that it would be this, young group of boys who wanted to be, a boy band and wanted to get on the radio. And then at the end of the storyline, their song does get on the radio. But then when you're driving home from seeing the Broadway show and you turn the radio on, like the song would actually be on the radio. So it's kind of like around the time reality TV was blowing up. And so they were the concept was kind of like a reality Broadway sort of thing. But then the reality just moved a lot faster than the Broadway aspect of that concept. So before we knew it, we were just a real boy band. We were out there doing our thing. It was a very short stint, to be honest. It was probably only like 2 years of my life. But here we are 20 plus years later, and people still want to ask me about it and talk about it. So it was obviously, meaningful. I love talking about it. But since then, I grew up playing guitar and writing my own music. So to be really honest, my dream was always to be in a band and to perform my own music. So when Dream Street broke up, I was not heartbroken about it. If anything, I was actually really excited to have established the network and the fan base that it gave us, and move forward with my real dreams. So I had a career as a solo artist. I've been in a lot of different bands, and even still to this day, I'm writing music. I work with a group out of Nashville. I'm there every few months recording. A lot of the music we write goes out for publishing. But I still, do my own thing. And last night I was hanging out with Matt and Frankie from Dream Street.
Oh,
and
nice.
We were, shooting the shit and talking about what kind of things we might want to do moving forward. We recently released a Dream Street song in honor of one of our fallen members, and it got a lot of great feedback. So we're kind of in this interesting place where we don't know what we're doing, but to be honest, it's just about having fun, and it's about enjoying life. I have many day jobs, more than one. And so I'm fortunate that I can pursue music in a capacity that is honest to my artistry and not for any other reason other than, real, pure enjoyment. And, I write songs for my kids. I write songs for my wife. I write songs, that I hope will inspire people. And it's kind of my way of, trying to shine my light in the world, versus some other artists who, might have to write a song to put food on the table, which I took a crack at, but it's, that wasn't for me. So yeah, I'm still very busy, living my best life. And I have a new album actually coming out in August. It's an album that I recorded in Nashville, and it's going to be titled City Country. And, it has a mix of pop, rock, and even a little bit of country in there.
Nice.
Yeah, I got married almost 10 years ago, but I've been with my wife for maybe close to 20 years now. And she's a big country fan. And so I always used to tell her when we were younger, I was like, oh, when we're old and in our 30s, I'm going to write and record a country album for you. And so now I'm almost in my 40s. So I had to get that album out before it's too late.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So now in terms of Dream Street, what was kind of like the audition process like for that?
I mean, it was the same audition process as it would be for any Broadway show, meaning, you send in a tape, you go in, you slate your name, they're filming you, you do a song, there's a bunch of people sitting behind a table. The interesting story there is there was actually a group before Dream Street called Boy Wonder, and that consisted of myself and Chris and 3 other guys. And we had been cast into the original group, and we worked all summer long. And at the end of the summer, did a show for all of these record label executives. And there was a very common critique that they, liked Chris and I, but wanted to recast the group. So that's when they, held a new round of auditions. And the funny thing is that Chris and I already knew we were in the group, but because of the recording and then wanting to have, the right footage for it, we were kind of in there pretending like we were auditioning again, even though we had already been working with the producers for a year at that point. So it was definitely a cooler audition, I think, for the 2 of us. But yeah, they whittled it down to like the top 8, and then eventually, the top 5. And then we, just started practicing every night, 5-6 days a week. To be honest, our parents really deserve a lot of credit because they were the ones driving us in and out of the city every single day, and then dropping us off at rehearsal, and then having to wait around for 2-3 hours, and and then bringing us home. We were minors, we were kids. So it was definitely a very a team effort on a lot of people's parts.
Definitely.
Absolutely. So in 2001, Dream Street's debut album was released. I'm curious. Of course, we've had way different technology than we did back then compared to now. What was it like getting to record that first album?
So I had recorded a bunch of albums already at that point, even though I was only like 12 or 13, because I had been in the industry since I was, 9. It wasn't really new to me. The studio where we recorded, it wasn't really anything crazy fancy. I definitely had recorded in some bigger, better studios. If anything, the more enjoyable process, I think, was working specifically with the songwriters, because they were the ones who really like. I remember they would give us each these CDs with our harmonies on it, but it would only have the harmony part of each member. So I would get a song and learn it, not even knowing that the part I was learning was necessarily a harmony. For all I knew, that was the lead vocal, that was the main melody of the song, which in many cases it wasn't. So, we would learn our parts individually, and then when we'd come in and they'd count us off and we'd all just start singing what we've been practicing, and then all of a sudden, like magic, we were harmonizing. That was a very cool experience because it wasn't like we were trying to figure out, oh, who's going to sing what, or what's the harmony here or anything like that. It was already all predetermined, and we even learned it that way. So when we came together and just started singing and everything was perfectly in harmony and like sounding together, that was probably the more exciting experience than even like recording in the studio.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'm curious. Do you have any favorite songs from that first album?
Yes, I would say my favorite song to perform was Feel the Rain, mostly because they had incorporated somewhat of a striptease for me in that song that I always really enjoyed. But then my favorite song on the album to like kind of just rock out to when I'm driving in my car would probably be I Say Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yes. So I'm kind of what was your overall reaction when the debut album hit the Billboard charts?
We were so young that we didn't really care too much about Billboard charts or anything like that. I think where we really felt like our wow moments was when our shows started selling out. And like I specifically remember this one time, where we were recording some kind of video, and actually it was all staged. um all the girls in the crowd weren't really even fans. They were like family members and friends of friends, and they were basically getting paid in pizza for being there. But we would come out to do our performance, and they would tell them like, hey, we need you guys to like scream. We want you to like really play into this so that it looks good for the cameras. And so at that point I had only done Broadway stuff where people politely clap, or if you're lucky you get a standing ovation, or I've done different sorts of shows where you didn't have screaming girls. And so I think when we first started experiencing that, like I remember the first time just like getting chills, and like all the hair on my arms just like sticking up and being like, whoa, what is going on here? So I feel like the magic and the real excitement was more those experience than like, hey, your song made it to the Billboard charts, and it was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. But look at that hot girl over there who was screaming at me, right? Like,
Yeah.
so it was probably more the live shows and the touring and the meet and greets where you'd have girls waiting for hours on end to meet you, and then they'd come up to take a picture and they'd be shaking, and it's like, what is happening here? Like, like it like doesn't register. So it is very, it's shocking, to be honest. We didn't last long enough to have really, for it to have ever gotten old. right? So because it was only a few years, you know, it was always very exciting. I mean, I would really times that I'd be like going to the mall in high school, and I would recognize fans because you know it's the same girls coming again and again, and you know there's the same faces in the front row. I remember a few times like seeing a fan walking through the mall and being like, "Oh, I'm gonna get her," and like coming up behind them and like putting my hands over their eyes, be like, "Guess who?" And they like turn around and then just like lose their shit. But like I would get just as excited as they would. Um, so I really enjoyed it, man. Like it was you know the memories could not be topped or replaced. It was
Absolutely.
definitely a couple of the most you know special years of my life.
Definitely. And
Mm.
so the success of your first album was followed by numerous TV appearances because you appeared on different talk shows and like different televised events. Can you kind of talk about doing those?
A lot of those televised events and news stories I did, to be honest, I did a lot more of that before Dream Street. Um, that Elvis thing that I touched on, I
Mhm.
got a lot of press from that, and I did a lot of different. It was like Maury Povich. Well, Maury Povich was Dream Street. I did Sally Jesse Raphael as a you know, as a little guy. Um, you know, when you do so much after a while, it all like blends in
Blurs.
together. Um, but I became very busy with Radio Disney post Dream Street as like
Yeah.
a
Oh yeah.
Radio Disney artist. So I was on a lot of Radio Disney tours. I did a lot of tours with Aaron Carter.
Oh, rest
Um,
in
and
peace.
I yeah, and you know what? I even one of the cool things I got to see was a lot of people like before they were big, um, like the Jonas Brothers had opened for me
Mhm.
like
Mm.
twice, you know, and then
Wow.
obviously before they, you know, before they blew up. But it's
Mhm.
cool to have kind of like been around for that long. To you know, I think Simple Plan opened up for me once before they blew up. Um, so it was cool to see artists become so successful that you know you had performed with or that had even opened for you. Um, and like even Jesse's success has been, you know, so great to see and something I've been very proud of
Oh yeah.
because you know it just goes to show how close it all is to me. You know, it's just like an arm's distance away. Um, so yeah, man, it's been a really cool journey, and that's why I'm still on it. I just really love it.
Nice.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Moving on to the touring aspect, do you have like any favorite touring locations?
Ooh, good question. You know, a lot of people think when you're touring, you're seeing so much of the places you're going to. In reality, you're in a bus or you're in a van, you go to a venue, you go to the gas stations, McDonald's, fast food, and and then you're on to the next place, right? So I don't think it was ever so much about the places that I would go to as much as it was the people that I would go to. So like I had a great fan base in Chicago. I would always love performing out there just because of the energy they brought. I had a great fan base in Pennsylvania that I would always love, you know, go see. You know, obviously my local New York fan base, New Jersey, you know, the East Coast is really where I spent most of my time. Um, but I think it was more the people than the places that made a difference, to be honest.
Of course, definitely.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So similarly, do you have any interesting? I know it's kind of strange saying because I know you just mentioned like You get to a gas station, get to the venue, on to the next city. But do you have any fun or interesting stories from performing on the road, whether it be from Dream Street or even your solo career?
Of course. I mean, they're countless, fun stories. It'd be hard to pick one out. Um, yeah, I mean, it's just countless stories. And they would really vary, especially like as we got older and we started getting into more trouble. So, being on tour with your best friends, that was always my favorite part, honestly, about being in a group versus being a solo artist, because I've experienced both worlds. All of us guys in Dream Street, like, we were tight, we were good we were hanging out last night, and so it is a whole nother level of enjoyment when you are doing things with friends naturally.
Absolutely.
Post Dream Street, my first go at a solo career, I had these like studio musicians who, don't get me wrong, were incredibly talented,
Right.
but they were all adults. And I was like this 16-year-old kid who was like trying to get girls' phone numbers, and these dudes were like married with kids. And so there definitely came a point where I was like, yes, it's cool to have this amazing band, but like, I kind of want like more of a garage band. Like, I want like friends. I want to have guys my age that I'm touring with. And so eventually, we made some changes, and one thing led to a next, and all my dreams came true, and I was touring with my best friends and writing music with all my best friends, and the relationships that I created, that still lasts to this day and will last a lifetime. I mean, my main co-write and guitar player is one of my son's godfather. So these are relationships that really are very meaningful to me. So yeah, I think doing stuff as a group is it's more fun, and again, it always, is it a business, or is it about making money, or is it about having a good time, so that has a lot to do with it. But thankfully, for the most part, it's always been, my focus more has been on enjoying myself than making a career out of it.
Absolutely. And are there any as a boy band, are there any like wacky, like crazy fan reactions you've received over the years?
Yeah, there's a ton of them. What's a funky one? I don't know. There's a bunch. I mean, one thing that I remember my dad being upset about is that some fans had like found out where my parents lived, and
Oh,
and would end up coming by and stealing the grass from our lawn.
What?
that's
They
interesting.
would literally like cut out patches of my parents' lawn. That's kind of strange.
That is strange.
Yeah, so there's there's some pretty weird stuff that's occurred. Yeah, I mean, that's just off the top of my head. If I thought more about it, I probably could come up with some other good stuff. But at the same time, like, it was all just so exciting.
Right.
I can understand how for some people who are in that industry, and have to live a life like that for years and years and years on end, how that could take a turn for the worse. But I'm fortunate that that wasn't my experience. I was always just super pumped, kind of like I said before. If somebody got recognized me, I think I was probably more excited about it than they were. So yeah, good stuff.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Going to somebody's parents' house is creepy, but stealing their grass?
I know that's the new one.
What?
we used
That's
to
a good
have
one.
we used to have code words. So when my friends would call the house, they would have to say the password to to get me on the phone, because we would have oftentimes, people would get your number somehow, and we'd have fans calling the house and all
Oh
kinds of
my God.
stuff. And so if you didn't know the password, they're just like little funny things that I guess are abnormal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So in 2020, as you had mentioned earlier, we sadly lost one of Dream Street's members, Chris Trousdale. Uh, Died pretty young too. Could you share some of your fondest memories from getting to know and work with Chris?
Yeah, of course. That's an easy one. Chris and I were in Broadway Kids together before Dream Street. Chris and I were in Boy Wonder together, the the group before Dream Street. Um, Chris was one of my longest time friends. And so we really grew up together. And in within Dream Street, Chris was by far the most talented dancer and experienced. And so he was instrumental in us following him and watching him to remember the moves. I mean, in all honesty, when our choreographer was teaching us moves, I mean, she would just show him once and he would know exactly what to do and remember it. And then we would have to drill it 1,000 times before we like knew what to do. So in all honesty, he became almost like the second choreographer to the group. Whereas, she would be on one side of the room, he would be on the other. And then the four of us with two left feet, would just kind of be like watching the two of them and trying to mimic them. But aside from his talent, as a person, Chris was just like, like the song that we released for him is titled Smile. And when I think of Chris, his smile is one of the first things that come to mind, because he would just have, he was just like so bright. And we all have our demons and we all have our things. So it's not to say that those didn't exist, but he was just a lot of fun. Like, he had no shame. Like, he would do things like there'd be a super hot girl and like, we'd be like really nervous. Oh, I can't tell. He'd be like, oh, I got this, and he would just walk up to anybody and say anything. And, I always really looked up to him for that. And he was just a lot of fun, and I miss him a lot. I was just at a wedding a couple of weeks ago where he had actually introduced the couple that was getting married, and so he was, memorialized very much so in the wedding ceremony, and it was a wedding that he obviously would have been at, and the whole time being there, I just kept like thinking about him and thinking about how we would have been hanging out in that moment, because he moved to LA after we broke up. So I didn't really see him for a long time. And last time I saw him actually was on my honeymoon. I was on my way back from a trip around the world, and we stopped in California, and I saw him. We grabbed a bite to eat. That was like 9 years ago. And but I was lucky to have had a conversation with him not too long before he passed, because I had heard through the grapevine that he was going to be in New York. And so I called him to actually give him some shit and be like, bro, what is this? You're coming to New York and you're not like coming over, and you're not going to like crash at my place. You're not going to come have dinner with us. Like, what WTF, man? and he was like so happy to hear that I wanted him to like come over. It actually kind of made me feel a little sad because I was like, what do you mean I wouldn't want you? Like, why would I not want you to come over? Like, what are you talking about? And so, that was important to me because it at least, I had that opportunity to kind of just like, let him know that, still love him and wanted to be in touch. But, it's hard these days. I got 4 kids at home. I got like 3-4 different jobs I'm running around doing all the time. You're busy. I mean, it's life. It's how things go. So you don't see people and you don't talk to people as often as you did when you're younger, but it doesn't necessarily change the feelings that you have for them.
Definitely.
Right. Yeah. So recently, you've reunited with the other Dream Street members for some new Dream Street material. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah. So music for me is more than just fun. It's a therapy. And when Chris passed, I think I probably got hit the hardest, being that, we had grown up for so long and we knew each other for so long. And so, that was a song that I had written with my songwriting partner. We write every week. And it was something that, I had written because I like needed to, in all honesty. It was like I had to just get it out. And then we call them the Dream Wives, but they all, all of our wives, significant others have connected, and they know how much us boys would love to hang out. So they actually put together a trip for us where we all went out to Montana and we just like, hung out and had a really good time. And it's unfortunate that it takes a tragedy to kind of like wake you up, essentially. But it did, and it made us really realize that you don't know how many days you got, and you do need to prioritize making the time to see the people that you care and love. And so that's kind of where it really just came from. And then I was just, naturally, I brought it up to them, and they listened to the song. They were into it. They wanted to do it. It wasn't really, to be honest, I did not intend for it to be a Dream Street song at all. It was a song that I wrote that would have probably just been on this album that I'm releasing next month, which will actually have an alternate version of the same song on the more country style version.
Nice.
And so what, originally it was just something I was doing. But obviously I wanted to, give them the opportunity if they wanted to be involved in it, and they did. And then one thing led to another. I did like a teaser video when we were like recording at Frankie's house, and it got a lot of buzz, and I started getting a lot of phone calls from different people, one of them being the Dream Street producers. And he was like, what are you guys doing? And he's been pushing forever to try and get us to do like another song. And so I let him know what was up, and then I sent him the song. He wanted to hear it, and he told me, he's like, listen, I wasn't planning on offering this because I don't know what the hell you guys were doing. He was like, but to be honest, I really like the song. And, for that reason, I would like to offer it if you guys want to use the name and use the actual Spotify account and release it as Dream Street, which kind of like came out of the blue, and we were like, cool, that's awesome, man. Like, to be honest, for me, and just knowing like how much Dream Street meant to Chris, that really was like the cherry on top of the whole thing. And I think it came out great. I'm really proud of it. I made a little music video. You can see on my YouTube page. And really it was just about, trying not wanting to honor him. And then even like for myself, it was just the therapeutic way of, just getting a lot of those feelings out and those memories, and then also, sharing them with all the people out there who relate. And so again, like that's what music is about for me. It's about, meaning and light and inspiration. And so, yeah, it's not something I could ever imagine myself not doing.
Right. Right. So after Dream Street, you mentioned you ventured into having a solo career. How did that kind of come into play?
The solo career was a very natural thing because I had always been writing my own music. Um, I had written a song which I intended to pitch to the Dream Street producers as a Dream Street song. And before I went to go pitch it to them, I wanted to record it professionally so it sounded good. So I was in the studio recording this song, and this was all while the like court stuff was going on, and we didn't really know what was going to happen. But we're 16 years old. Like that was my parents' problem. I wasn't like really worrying about it. And then we ended up breaking up, so that didn't happen. But one of the interns at the studio approached me and was like, "Hey man, so question, like when you go to perform these songs live, like how do you plan on doing that? Because this is like kind of more of like a live band thing. Are you gonna like sing to tracks, or are you like trying to have like a band play this behind you?" And it hadn't even occurred to me because that wasn't even like where my mind was. I was still like just in Dream Street world, and I was like, I don't know, but that's a really great question. Like I have to think about it. And he was like, well, like, I play bass, and my buddy's a drummer and my other buddy's a guitar player. Like if you want, like we could, like, these songs, they're rocking, man. Like if you want, like we'll get together and just like jam out. And I was like, all right, like, cool, let's do it. And that guitar player that he brought, that's my son's godfather now. And so that's kind of where, how it happened. It just was like a very natural thing, and it's kind of like a snowball. One thing just leads to the next, and before you know it, you're almost 40 years old with 4 kids, and you're, releasing music albums for fun.
Definitely.
Absolutely. So going back to your albums, in 2003, you released your self-titled debut album. Can you talk a bit about that?
In 2003, yeah. So that was the album where like a lot of those songs, from the studio that I mentioned, that was on that album. I think that song was My Life, was like the first song, and Looking for Love. But then I got connected with a really professional producer and a really professional studio. I got signed to a small independent label, and for me, that was where I really started to feel like I was doing what I was meant to do. Like I said earlier, I was never a dancer. Don't get me wrong, I loved dancing. I loved being on stage. I loved ripping my shirt off and making people scream. But like in terms of like identity and like who I like have always felt I was, I'm a songwriter, I'm a guitar player, I'm a performer. And so doing that first self-titled album was really a step in the direction that I always really saw for myself.
Definitely.
Absolutely. So, aside from music, you've also done a lot of charity work, including with the charity organization Kids Need More. For those who are not aware, can you kind of talk about what Kids Need More is about and what your
I
work
would
is with the
love to.
organization?
Yes, absolutely. So Kids Need More is an amazing charity where they put together it actually does go year round, but I've always been involved with them over the summers and their camp programs. But essentially it's a camp for kids and their siblings with terminal illnesses. And rather than these kids living their last days in a hospital bed in a hospital somewhere, they're out in this like camp setting with camp counselors and events and bouncy castles and beautiful scenery and just having fun. And then obviously it's all done under the guidance, like they have a medical staff on hand, and they're prepared for all the complications that would come with that. But it was something that a long time ago, someone from the camp had reached out to me, asked me if I would be interested in coming to perform for the kids. I did, and when I went there, I was just like in awe of what they were doing. I definitely have a soft spot for kids. I think I've always been that way, and so I just really connected with it. I really felt the impact it was making, and I've done my best to make it like an annual thing where I go there and I perform. I haven't in the past few years, but instead, anytime I'm doing any show or I'm raising any kind of money, then I typically will send it there.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
But definitely check them out, kidsneedmore.org. There's a lot of great charities out there, but I can tell you firsthand that they are legit and what they're doing is incredible, and they work all off of donations. And it's a really special thing, and an honor for me to be involved in any capacity that I can be with them.
Definitely.
Yeah. And before we're going to start wrapping up soon, you're actually part of a song, 3 is a Magic Number,
Yes.
which is
What was it like
from
doing
Mickey,
that?
Donald, Groove, and the Three Musketeers, and Schoolhouse Rock.
I don't even
doing that.
remember the Schoolhouse of Rock, to be honest, but I believe you. And the 3 is a magic number. It's funny you say that, because that song is like my I don't know what to call it, but because it's on the Goofy movie, it gets a lot of plays. And so when Disney released it on Spotify and they put me on there as a featured artist, naturally it comes up on my artist page. And between me and you, my goal in life, I try to keep my, not set my standards too high, but this is an actual real goal of mine. That damn song is always #1 on my most popular list of songs. If you go to my Spotify artist account and you see like the most popular tracks, 3 is a mother effing magic number, is always #1. And it drives me crazy because it's like the last song I ever want anybody to hear as a first impression of like me and what I do. And I have not been able to beat it. And so it's just funny that you bring it up, because that is a very serious, legitimate goal of mine, is to write a song and just to get it to be more popular than that damn song, so that when you go to my Spotify account, it is not #1. That is, if I accomplish that, I will have accomplished what I've really wanted to.
Definitely. So now, are there any projects you're currently working on that you can share?
Yeah, so I got the new album coming out. It was supposed to be August 4th. We might push it back to August 8th. Haven't decided yet, but it'll be early August. I'm going to be going back to Nashville in November, start recording some more material. As I mentioned earlier, I was hanging out with Frankie and Matt last night. We were doing some stuff, so that is to be determined what happens there. We'll see. And I write music every week. I've kind of reunited with one of my old bands, the Dead Celebrities. We had recorded an album in 2009 that never got released. And so before I released my City Country album, I felt like I had to get that off the shelves. And so I had recently released that album. I've been having a lot of fun making, random music videos for it. I've got another music video in the queue that will probably get released within the next couple weeks from that album. So just, in terms of what's to come, it's going to be a lot of new music, and I'm going to be playing shows as often as I can. And having a good time, and hopefully making a difference, and making people feel good.
Nice.
Fantastic. So to anyone watching or listening, what would you like to say to those who've supported your work throughout your career, Dream Street and your solo career?
So legitimately, I had, a lot of the girls who have been with me for so long, we're like friends, where it's not even like this fan artist relationship at this point. Like they are my friends. We text each other. They help me out, to run the door. And so one of my really long-term friends, Lauren, was messaging me the other day, and she was just saying, like, how much she just enjoyed being at a show and how it like brings her back. And I was really straight up with her. I was like, I got to be honest with you, you are the reason I still even can put on a show. Like you in New York City, nobody's gonna book you if you can't bring at least 10 people. And so that support, that gives me the ability to continue being the person that I've always dreamed and wanted to be. And so if you think about how meaningful that is, they literally, make it like they make my dreams come true, like quite literally. And so, yeah, all I could say is like, thank you is not even enough. And I'm just so honored to have people who have, stuck with me for so long. It's really a very special, amazing thing.
Definitely. So if people would like to connect with you, where can people find you?
I'm all over most social media channels. So if you got my name, you type it into Google, you'll find me. I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Facebook. I got a website, gregraposomusic.com. So I would like to think I'm pretty accessible. So yeah, reach out. I'd love to connect and chat with people and have a good time.
Absolutely. Links to that will be in the
Awesome.
description. So the last question,
follow you, connect. Yeah.
yes, the last question that Jake's about to ask is the question that we ask all of our guests at the end. Go ahead, Jake.
Yes, yep. You always do. So of course, this podcast is called Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. When you think of nostalgia, what do you think of, or in your own words, how would you define the word nostalgia?
How would I define my nostalgia?
Yeah.
I would define my nostalgia. It depends really on what part of my life I'm being nostalgic about, right? So like when I was a little kid, I was a huge Ninja Turtles, Pee Wee Herman, Ghostbusters guy, so the first thing that pops into my head when I think of the word nostalgia are probably those three. Those would probably be my big three: Ghostbusters, Ninja Turtles, and Pee Wee Herman. But if we're talking nostalgia, like, as a performer, and in that capacity, then yeah, Dream Street would be most likely what defines my nostalgia.
Definitely great word to end on.
Awesome.
Well, Greg, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. This was a blast.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and then DJ Bob, he said hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, please tell him I said what's up. That's my dude over there. Love
Yes.
that guy.
Yeah.
Great friend of ours.
Absolutely.
And he help us
Wonderful
with
friend
things
of
too.
ours.
Yes. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, Greg. I'll let you know when this goes up.
Yes, and thank you so much for what you've done. And can I wait what's next for you?
Thank you guys so much.
Yes, of
I'll
course.
talk to you.
Thank
Don't be
you.
a stranger.
We won't.
All right. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day, Greg.
Later, fellas.
All right,
Later.
see you, Greg. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
It's goodbye from us as well, folks.
Yep.
Absolutely enjoyed our time with
Check,
Greg Raposo.
Yes.
check out his new album coming out soon. Really excited about it. Also check out his charity as well.
Yes.
Wonderful,
Mhm.
wonderful charity. Check it out as well. But
Yes,
it's goodbye from us. What do we say, Jake?
Keep nostalgia alive. Take care Wednesday next time. Amazing morning episodes. As always, see you next time for that.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another wonderful Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show interview. Be sure to follow Jake and the crew on social media and stream the show wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And as always, remember to keep nostalgia alive. Bye-bye.